The invitation sat on my kitchen table like a ticking bomb. Gold-embossed letters spelled out my granddaughter Emma's name alongside some boy I'd never met. My hands trembled as I reached for it, not from age, though I'd earned every one of my 73 years, but from the phone call I'd received an hour earlier. "Grandpa Joe, I need to tell you something." Emma's voice had been tight, strained, about the wedding. I'd waited, my heart already sinking. "Derek's mother, she doesn't think you should come." The words had hit me like a physical blow. 50 years I'd worked as a mechanic, raising my daughter Sarah alone after my wife passed. Every penny I'd saved, every weekend I'd spent teaching Emma to fish, to change a tire, to stand up for herself, and now I wasn't wanted at her wedding. "Why?" I'd managed to ask. "She says you're too rough, that you don't fit with their family's image. Derek's family is very prominent, and his mother wants everything perfect. I'm so sorry, Grandpa, please just don't come. I don't want any drama on my wedding day." The line had gone dead before I could respond. Now, 3 months later, I stared at that invitation. My daughter Sarah had called me daily, begging me to reconsider, to show up anyway. "Dad, Emma's being manipulated," she'd said. "This isn't her, it's that woman." That woman, Regina Montgomery. I'd met her exactly once, at the engagement party I'd barely been invited to. She'd looked at my calloused hands, my off-the-rack suit, and her lip had curled ever so slightly. She'd asked what I did for a living, and when I'd told her I'd retired from my auto shop, she'd actually said, "How quaint," before turning away. I'd built that shop from nothing, put Sarah through college with the profits, helped Emma with her student loans when Sarah's marketing job wasn't quite enough. None of that mattered to Regina Montgomery. The wedding was tomorrow, Saturday, 2 o'clock at some fancy estate in the countryside. I'd already sent my gift, a check that had made my pension account wince. I'd planned to stay home, tend to my garden, maybe visit my wife's grave and tell her how our granddaughter had grown into someone I didn't recognize. But Sarah's words kept echoing, "This isn't her." I thought about the little girl who'd cried when she'd accidentally broken my favorite fishing rod, who'd spent hours in my shop learning to change oil, who'd written me letters from college calling me her hero. Was that Emma really gone, or was she trapped under the weight of Regina Montgomery's expectations? At midnight, I made my decision. I showered, shaved, and pulled out the suit I'd worn to my wife's funeral, the good one, custom-made by the tailor she'd loved. It still fit. I polished my shoes until they gleamed. I dug out my wife's pearl cufflinks, the ones she'd given me on our 25th anniversary. Then I called my old friend Marcus, who owned a car service. "I need a favor," I said. The estate was even more ostentatious than I'd imagined. A sprawling mansion with manicured gardens, white chairs arranged in perfect rows, and enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. I arrived an hour early, had Marcus drop me off down the road, and walked the rest of the way. The ceremony area was still being prepared. I spotted Emma immediately, standing in a gazebo with her bridesmaids, looking radiant in her white dress. But her smile seemed forced, her laughter hollow. Then I saw Regina. She stood like a general surveying her troops, directing staff with sharp gestures, her designer dress probably costing more than my first car. She checked her watch, consulted with the wedding planner, and I saw it, the satisfaction on her face. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted. I stayed hidden in the gardens, waiting. Guests began arriving in luxury cars. I recognized none of them. Where were Emma's college friends, her co-workers, the family friends who'd watched her grow up? This crowd was all Regina's, business associates, society connections, people who'd never scraped dirt from under their fingernails or worried about making rent. The ceremony began. I watched from behind a large oak tree as Emma walked down the aisle alone, her mother beside her, but no one to give her away. Sarah had refused to take my place, I learned later. The spot where I should have been stood empty, a silent accusation. Derek seemed nice enough, I supposed. Young, nervous, clearly in love, but he kept glancing at his mother, seeking approval with every move. That worried me more than anything. They exchanged vows. Emma's voice wavered. I saw her eyes scan the crowd, and for just a moment I could swear she was looking for me. The ceremony ended. Guests moved to the reception area, a massive tent decorated like something from a fairy tale. I waited until everyone was inside, then I made my move. The reception was in full swing when I walked in. A live band played soft jazz, champagne flowed freely, and Regina stood at the center of it all, holding court like a queen. I walked straight through the entrance, my head high. The first to notice me was Sarah. Her eyes widened, then filled with tears. She started toward me, but I shook my head slightly. This wasn't about her. Emma saw me next. She froze, a glass of champagne halfway to her lips. Our eyes met across the room, and I saw it, relief, guilt, fear, love, all tangled together. Then Regina spotted me. She moved faster than I'd have thought possible in those heels, intercepting me before I'd taken 5 steps into the tent. "You weren't invited," she hissed, her society smile never wavering. "You need to leave, now." "I was invited," I said calmly, pulling the gold-embossed invitation from my jacket pocket. "See, says right here. Emma doesn't want you here." "Then let Emma tell me that, to my face." Regina's mask cracked slightly. Conversations around us had stopped. People were watching. "You're going to ruin everything," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "This is my son's wedding. These are important people. You don't belong here." "I belong wherever my granddaughter is." "Your granddaughter is the one who called you. She told you not to come. She's embarrassed by you." That strung, but I held firm. "Then she can tell me herself." Regina looked ready to call security. I'm sure she had some lurking around somewhere. But then a voice cut through the tension. "Grandpa!" Emma stood 10 feet away, her wedding dress rustling as she approached. Her eyes were red-rimmed, mascara slightly smudged. Derek followed close behind, looking confused. "Emma," Regina began, "I'll handle this." "No," Emma's voice was stronger than I'd heard it in months. "No, you won't." She walked past her new mother-in-law and stopped directly in front of me. Up close, I could see she'd been crying. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Grandpa Joe." "Emma, darling," Regina interjected, "you're upset. Let's not make a scene." "I've been making scenes my whole life, Mrs. Montgomery," Emma said, not taking her eyes off me. "Grandpa Joe taught me that standing up for what matters is never a scene, it's just being brave." She turned to face the crowd, which had grown silent. "I need to tell you all something," Emma said, her voice carrying across the tent. 3 months ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I called my grandfather and told him not to come to my wedding, not because I didn't want him here, not because I was embarrassed, but because someone convinced me that love meant sacrifice and that to fit into a new family, I had to leave parts of my old one behind. Regina's face had gone white. "But that's not love," Emma continued. "This man taught me to change a tire when I was 12. He paid for my textbooks when I couldn't afford them. He sat with me in the hospital when I had my appendix out because my mom was stuck in a work meeting. He taught me that your worth isn't measured in dollars or status, but in how you treat people when nobody's watching." She turned back to me, tears streaming freely now. "I don't deserve you here, Grandpa, but I'm begging you to stay anyway." The tent was absolutely silent. I looked at my granddaughter, at the woman she'd become despite her momentary stumble, and I smiled. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, sweetheart." Emma collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her tight, this little girl who'd grown into a beautiful woman, and over her shoulder I saw Regina Montgomery's face twisted in fury. But I also saw Derek. He'd moved to stand beside his mother, and as I watched, he took her elbow gently. "Mom," he said quietly but firmly, "maybe you should take a seat." Regina looked at her son in shock, but Derek's expression was resolute. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. What happened next surprised me more than anything. Derek approached us, looking nervous but determined. "Sir," he said, extending his hand to me, "I'm Derek. I'm sorry we're meeting properly for the first time like this. I'd very much like to know the man who raised such an incredible woman. I shook his hand, measuring his grip, his eyes. He didn't flinch. You got yourself a handful with this one, I said, nodding to Emma. I know, sir, that's why I'm marrying her. The reception continued, but it was different now. Sarah materialized at my side, crying and laughing. Emma's college friends, who I learned had been relegated to back tables, moved forward. Stories started flowing about Emma growing up, about my auto shop, about the time she'd tried to fix her first car and had ended up covered in oil. I danced with Emma to a father-daughter song, filling the role that had been left empty. As we swayed to the music, she whispered, I don't know how to make this up to you. You already have, I told her. You found your spine again. That's all I ever wanted. Later, as the party wound down, Regina approached me. She looked older somehow, diminished. You made your point, she said coldly. This wasn't about points, Mrs. Montgomery. It was about love. She studied me for a long moment. Derek chose her side over mine today, because of you. No, I said gently. Derek chose his wife over his mother. That's what he was supposed to do, just like you probably did once, when you got married. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, maybe, or old pain. She walked away without another word. As I left that night, Emma and Derek walked me to the car. Grandpa, Emma said, I want you to know, the next family event, you're the first one I invite, and anyone who has a problem with it doesn't have to come. Derek nodded. Sir, I'd like to visit your shop sometime. Emma tells me you've got a '67 Mustang you're restoring. I'd been working on that car for 3 years, ever since I'd retired. You know cars. I'm learning, he admitted. Emma's teaching me. I laughed, a real, deep laugh that felt like coming home. As Marcus drove me away from that estate, I looked back at my granddaughter, radiant in her wedding dress, waving goodbye with her new husband at her side. She'd stumbled, yes, but she'd found her way back. And sometimes, that's the bravest thing anyone can do.